Han Soo, an unsociable high school student, moves into the green home apartment complex following the death of his family. Haunted by guilt and grief, Han Soo struggles with life and contemplates suicide. However, his pretty neighbor Yunyu distracts him. A series of strange and terrifying incidents soon disrupt the peaceful and quiet atmosphere of the apartment complex. People begin undergoing horrifying transformations, turning into bizarre, bloodthirsty creatures driven by their deepest desires and fears. As chaos unfolds, Han Soo finds himself trapped inside the apartment building with other survivors, including a reckless musician, Yoonji Soo, a dangerous gangster, Han Sang-guk, and a brave firefighter, Koi Young. Together, they must adapt to this new reality and fight to stay alive. Back in his room, Han Soo starts bleeding profusely from his nose. As tensions rise and fear takes hold, conflicts arise within the group as they grapple with paranoia and mistrust. Yu's cautious brother, Lean Hak, takes on the new leadership role and attempts to persuade everyone that they must rely on their wits, caution, and resourcefulness to outsmart the monsters. Unfortunately, Kim Swan, a greedy local convenience store owner, refuses to share anything. As the residents check the news, they realize that the disease has spread nationwide, and the country is now in damage control mode. The relentless attacks from monstrous creatures escalate. While protecting Yunyu, Sang-guk gets bitten. Everyone believes he's infected, so he is isolated from the group. Jio and Jang Jan, a Korean language teacher with a sword, find Sunjae, a beaten captive of Sang-guk. Han Soo teams up with the paralyzed genius Hwick to save the kids from the apartment block below. After rescuing them, Han Soo suffers another seizure, but this time his eyes turn black. The kids are left alone to face two monsters at once. Thanks to a brave woman named Mang Suk, they make it to safety. Jang Jan and Jio rescue Han Soo and join them in Dusk's flat to decide their next move. Han Soo admits that he's infected and makes a pact with Jio: if either of them turns, the other will kill them. The survivors watch a broadcast about the pandemic, which ends with the president's death. Their panic grows as Swan locks himself inside the convenience store, refusing to let anyone else in. Sunjae shows up with a suitcase packed full of food and generously shares it with everyone, but he still seems suspicious. Cha-ji sees her daughter running toward the building. One of the men rushes to help the girl, but a disgusting tentacle creature kills them. Jio, Han Soo, and Jang Jan leave the kids with Duck and Mang Suk and descend to the first floor to join Yunak and the rest of the survivors. Ekim gets trapped by a monster that resembles a giant spider but manages to fight it off and escape. A news report confirms that the military will take charge of security and civil affairs moving forward. It also reveals that the creatures regenerate quickly but can be killed during a brief period known as the Golden Hour. Yunak, aware that Han Soo is infected, offers the residents the opportunity to vote on his fate. As a result, Han Soo stays with the group but is isolated, along with Swan, who also exhibits symptoms. Sang-guk confronts Sunjae and beats him until the boy locks himself in the same room as Han Soo and Swan. He then asks Han Soo how to turn into a monster like him. Meanwhile, Dusk discovers that Mang Suk has transformed into a massive sack with a baby inside. From this point on, Yunak assigns Han Soo all the dangerous tasks to fulfill everyone's needs. Han Soo is tasked with saving Dusk and the kids and bringing them to the rest of the group. On his way, he meets two other survivors, an old man, Unilab, and his caretaker, Park Yuri. Together, they head to Duck's apartment to plan their next move. Sang-guk searches Sunjae's apartment and discovers a room filled with child abuse trophies, including hundreds of photos of beaten children. It becomes clear why Sang-guk was hunting him. Sang-guk fights Sunjae, defeats him, and drags his body outside the building. He then retrieves the bodies of Cha-ji's daughter and her protector to give them a proper burial. The residents gather to pay their respects. Meanwhile, Ik-young discovers that she is pregnant. As the residents build traps for the monsters, Ik-young decides to go on a solo mission to gather information about her deceased fiancé, Chief Physician Sangon. At his office, she reads his report on the pandemic but is caught by a group of soldiers. Ik-young promises to show them someone resisting the infection if they let her go. Not everyone is happy with how Han-soo is being used as an errand boy despite being infected. He is still human and shouldn't have to risk his life for others. Swan begins to turn into a monster, and his wife finally gets revenge on her cruel, abusive husband by killing him. When the monsters attack again, the survivors work together to fight back. Eventually, they stop taking Han-soo for granted and apologize to him. Yuri and Sang-guk grow closer to each other. With the water tank contaminated, the group realizes they have serious problems. Yunak and Dusk devise a plan to venture outside and gather resources before it's too late. Jo develops appendicitis and requires surgery. The group splits into two. One team, led by Ian Hack, assists with Jo's surgery, while Han-soo's team ventures outside to gather resources. As they face the outside world, a giant creature invades their car. Yuri gets trapped, and Gillo, now infected, creates a hopeless situation. Ik-young arrives on a fire truck, providing the distraction needed to save the group and kill the monster. Yunak successfully completes Jo's surgery, saving her life. Ik-young faces a difficult choice. The soldiers promise her information about Sangon in exchange for delivering Han-soo to them for experiments. Adding to the tension, a rogue soldier appears in the apartment block, behaving oddly. The residents begin to suspect that the army might pose an even greater threat than the monsters. One of the monsters catches the survivors off guard, and Jang sacrifices himself to save the group. Jo is heartbroken, as she and Jang have grown close. Gillo suggests finding an underground bunker hidden near the apartment complex. Shortly after, a truck races toward the building. A group of aggressive men storm the complex, kill the runaway soldier, and hunt the survivors. Their leader, Yuma, threatens the residents and kills several of them, but keeps his true motive secret. Realizing that humans are the worst monsters, the residents band together to fight for their lives. Yunak takes Han-soo to the rooftop and tortures him, but one of the criminals kills Yunak and the rest of his gang. It turns out that the man is infected but remains human, like Han-soo. He proposes that Han-soo leave with him to find others like them. As they talk, a military helicopter flies overhead, dropping a leaflet promising safety for those with information about special infected individuals. The infected man warns Han-soo that the authorities only experimented on him and failed to help. The military announces Operation Golden Hour, which allows them to kill everyone, humans and monsters, if salvation seems unattainable. Yuri suffers an asthma attack, and Sang-guk wants to take her outside for air. The infected man realizes Han-soo will always remain loyal to his friends and starts a bloody massacre. Han-soo fully embraces his infection, transforming into an unknown creature, and defeats the intruder. Duk sacrifices his life to help Han-soo return to his human form. Although Han-soo survives, he has no memory of what happened. Gillo finds the bunker but dies shortly after. When the army surrounds the apartment complex, most residents retreat into the bunker while Han-soo confronts the soldiers. Yunak tries to stop him and decides to sacrifice himself alongside Han-soo. When the group emerges from the bunker, they are taken to a survival camp by soldiers. Han-soo accepts his fate and fights the army, proving to be an incredibly resilient opponent. After the battle, Han-soo wakes up in Sang-guk's car, heading toward the unknown.